The moon rose high over the blood-fanged dominion, casting a silver light across the dense forest. The trees whispered secrets to one another as the wind moved through their branches. Somewhere deep in this wilderness, the Alpha King, Kalen, moved with the silent grace of a predator. His black cloak flowed behind him, and his eyes glimmered with the cold intensity of a wolf who had ruled these lands for decades. Kalen had never been one to underestimate danger. He had led his pack through countless battles, defended his territory from rival clans, and earned a fearsome reputation that even humans feared. Yet tonight something felt different. A strange tension hung in the air, pulling him toward the northern edge of his kingdom. It was there that he found her. She was human, small, fragile, and very much out of place in the wilderness. Her clothes were torn and dirt-stained, and her hands trembled as she clutched a satchel filled with herbs. But despite her obvious weakness, her eyes held a steady courage that made Kalen pause. She looked up as he stepped into the clearing, her breath catching at the sight of the towering figure before her. Kalen's presence was overwhelming, like a storm contained in a man's form. He did not speak immediately. Instead, he observed her carefully, noting the way she moved, the way her muscles tensed, the careful awareness in her gaze. "Who are you?" Kalen asked at last, his voice low, deep, and commanding. It carried a weight that made the human flinch slightly. I am Alara," she said, her voice trembling but not broken. "I am a healer. I mean no harm. I only seek shelter and herbs for the sick in the northern village." Kalen's eyes narrowed. Humans were not welcome in his domain. Most of them did not survive long enough to cross into his territory. Yet something about her stayed his hand, held him back from the instinctive growl that rose from his chest. "You wander into the territory of the Alpha uninvited," he said. "Do you understand what that means?" Ilara swallowed hard. I understand. Please, I only want to help. I mean no disrespect." There was something about her honesty, the quiet strength in her tone that intrigued Kalen. Humans were usually timid, afraid, or outright dishonest when faced with power. She was none of those things, and yet, he could sense the danger surrounding her. Something unnatural had brought her here. Something beyond a simple traveler lost in the woods. Kalen approached her slowly, each step deliberate. The moonlight caught the edge of his blade at his side, a reminder that he was not to be trifled with. He stopped just a few feet from her, close enough for her to feel the heat radiating from him, the subtle, wolf-like aura that marked him as Alpha. "You are lucky I am in a merciful mood tonight," Kalen said, his eyes locking onto hers. "By rights you should not have survived the forest alone." Ilara's heart raced, but she did not flee. She felt a strange pull toward him, a magnetic force that made fear and fascination entwine in her chest. I survived because I had to," she whispered. "I have a duty to those who cannot protect themselves." Kalen tilted his head, studying her. He could sense the determination in her spirit, the unspoken strength that refused to bend even in the face of danger. It was rare in humans. It was dangerous. And yet, for reasons he could not name, it stirred something deep within him, a curiosity he had not felt in centuries. "You will stay," he said suddenly. "You will stay under my protection until I decide your fate." Ilara hesitated, fear flickering in her eyes. I cannot stay long. My people, my village, they need me." "You belong to my territory now," Kalen said firmly. "And while you are here, your fate is tied to mine." Ilara felt a chill run down her spine. There was no malice in his tone, only absolute certainty. She realized she had no choice but to accept. Yet the bond she now felt to him was strange and unsettling. She had never been so close to someone so powerful, someone so commanding, someone so dangerous. As night deepened, Kalen led her to a small clearing near a stream. The forest was quiet, save for the rustle of leaves and the distant howls of wolves. He set up a temporary shelter using fallen branches and leaves, working silently while Ilara watched in awe. "You have never lived in the wild," he said softly, noticing her hesitation. "Yet you move as though you belong here. Why?" Ilara met his gaze, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. "Because I must. I cannot stand by while others suffer. I may be small and I may be human, but I have strength in ways you do not yet see." Kalen's lips curved into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. She was fearless yet careful, brave yet wise. And he, Alpha King, master of the blood-fanged dominion, felt a pull he could not name. Hours passed and the moon reached its zenith. Kalen kept watch while Alara tried to rest, but sleep was difficult with the weight of his gaze upon her. It was not threatening, but it was relentless, like the forest itself had given him the power to see into her soul. Finally, she could not resist any longer. "Why do you watch me like that?" she asked, her voice soft, almost a whisper. Kalen knelt slightly, bringing his face closer to hers, but never crossing the line of comfort or fear. "Because you are not like the others," he said simply. "And because, I do not know why, but I feel bound to protect you." Ilara's breath caught. There was a strange intensity in his words, a raw honesty that made her heart ache with both fear and longing. She had heard of Alpha Kings, of their ferocity and power, but never had she imagined a moment like this, so quiet, so tense, yet filled with unspoken emotion. The night air grew colder and Kalen stood, scanning the forest with sharp wolf-like senses. "We are not alone," he murmured. The wind carried distant howls, too many for it to be his pack. Rival packs, hunters, predators drawn by the scent of something rare and dangerous. A human within Alpha territory. Alara rose beside him, her courage surprising even herself. "Then we face them together?" she asked. Kalen's eyes softened briefly before the usual steely resolve returned. "Yes," he said. "But know this, human. If you survive tonight, it will only be because I allow it. The forest is cruel and my enemies are crueler. You will need more than courage to live here." Ilara nodded, understanding the gravity of his words. She could not turn back now, not with her village depending on her, and not with the strange, compelling pull she felt toward the Alpha who had claimed her fate. The wind carried a low, ominous growl from the darkness. Kalen's stance shifted, predatory instincts sharpening like a blade. He motioned for Alara to stay close, and together they advanced into the shadows, ready to face whatever dangers the night would bring. And then, as the first light of dawn brushed the treetops, the forest erupted with movement. Shadowy figures emerged, rival werewolves from the northern clans, their eyes glinting with malice. Kalen's pack had been warned of human intruders before, and they intended to make this one's death a lesson. Kalen's muscles tensed, and a low growl rumbled in his throat, vibrating through the air like distant thunder. Alara felt a surge of fear, but also an inexplicable trust. She would follow him into battle, into danger, into the unknown, because something in her soul told her that this Alpha King, fierce, commanding, and impossibly strong, was unlike anyone she had ever met. The first clash of the rival pack's assault broke the morning stillness. Kalen moved with precision, strength, and controlled fury. Ilara ducked behind a fallen tree, her heart racing as she witnessed the raw power of the Alpha. She had never seen anything so terrifying, and yet, so awe-inspiring. Through the chaos, Kalen's eyes found hers, and in that moment, a silent promise passed between them. Survival, protection, and something more, something forbidden, dangerous and impossible to name. The battle had only begun, and the night had already changed them both forever. Dawn broke over the blood-fang forests, washing the trees in pale gold. The clash from the night before had left the clearing scarred, broken branches, crushed leaves, and the faint smell of smoke where fire had sparked from friction. Kalen stood tall, every muscle tense, eyes scanning for any lingering threat. Ilara was behind him, her breath shaky but steadying, her hands pressed together as if trying to still the trembling in her body. "You should not have come here," Kalen said, his voice low but not angry. He did not turn to face her immediately. Instead, he kept watch, as though the forest itself could hide dangers yet unseen. "I had no choice," Ilara replied softly, stepping closer despite the fear gnawing at her chest. "If the villages are in danger, I cannot stand by. I am a healer. I help where I can." Kalen's gaze softened for a brief moment, just enough that she noticed. "You are brave, or foolish," he said. His eyes flicked to the remains of the rival pack that had fled at the first light of dawn. "Humans rarely survive in my territory. Most die before they even see the sun." Alara's eyes met his. "Maybe I am meant to survive," she said quietly, her words carrying a confidence that surprised even her. She had no reason to expect Kalen to be impressed, yet she felt a subtle acknowledgement in the way he held her gaze. Kalen made no reply. He turned and led her deeper into the forest, toward a hidden sanctuary few humans had ever seen. The sanctuary was a natural clearing surrounded by towering oaks and silvered ferns, with a small stream winding through the middle. Sunlight danced across the water, and the gentle babble of the stream brought a sense of calm that Alara had not felt since the danger first found her. "You will stay here," Kalen said, his voice firmer now. "The forest beyond is not safe, and the rival packs are still near. I cannot guarantee your safety if you wander," Alara nodded. She could sense the command behind his words. Kalen was used to being obeyed, yet she noticed the faint flicker of concern in his eyes. The Alpha's duty to his territory clashed with his growing interest in this fragile human. "I do not wish to be a burden," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You are not a burden," Kalen replied, almost too quickly as if denying some internal warning. "You are unusual, rare. Perhaps that is why I have not sent you away." Alara's heart skipped a beat. She did not know what to say. Humans rarely receive such attention from an Alpha, much less one as feared as Kalen. She decided to focus on survival instead of questions her mind could not answer. Hours passed in tense silence. Kalen patrolled the perimeter of the sanctuary, while Alara gathered herbs and cleaned her wounds as best she could. The forest felt alive around them. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig was a reminder that predators might still be near. Yet despite the tension, a strange bond began forming. Each sensed the presence of the other as more than a threat, more than a stranger. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the clearing, Kalen finally spoke again. "Tell me why you are not afraid," he asked. His eyes were fixed on her, intense and unreadable. Alara hesitated. "I am afraid," she admitted, "but fear does not control me. I have to protect others, even if it means standing in danger myself." Kalen studied her. Humans were weak by nature, yet she had the heart of a warrior. He felt a strange warmth in the grip of his emotions, a pull he had not experienced in centuries. Something about her courage, her quiet strength, stirred the part of him that longed for connection beyond pack and duty. "Courage alone will not keep you safe," he said, "but perhaps it will save you in ways even I cannot." The forest grew darker, and the first hints of night arrived with a chill wind. Kalen gestured for Alara to follow him to a nearby cave he often used for emergencies. The cave was hidden behind thick vines and moss, almost invisible unless one knew the exact path. Inside it was dry and warm, lined with soft moss and the faint scent of pine. "Rest here," Kalen instructed, his voice gentle but unwavering. "I will keep watch." Alara settled down, her back against the stone wall, feeling the tension in her shoulders begin to ease. Kalen's presence was still commanding, but there was an undeniable safety in knowing he was near. As she closed her eyes, she tried to make sense of her feelings: fear, curiosity, admiration, and something deeper, something she could not name. Hours passed quietly, broken only by the distant calls of nocturnal creatures. Kalen remained at the cave's entrance, his senses alert, ears twitching at every sound. Despite his alpha instincts, his mind kept drifting to Alara. He had protected many in his life, yet none had stirred such a strange mixture of frustration, intrigue, and longing within him. When the moon reached its highest point, a sudden rustle outside the cave made him tense. Shadows moved along the forest floor. Wolves, but not of his pack. Intruders. Kalen's eyes narrowed, and his body shifted, ready to strike. Alara stirred. "Kalen?" she whispered, her voice trembling despite her attempts to stay calm. "They are near," he replied, his tone low and dangerous. "Stay calm. Do not make a sound." The rival wolves circled the cave, their eyes glinting in the moonlight. Kalen stepped out silently, muscles coiled, every sense attuned to the threat. The human's presence in his domain was dangerous, but now more than ever, he realized how much he could not allow harm to come to Alara. He moved with the grace of a shadow, striking quickly and precisely, forcing the intruders back. Alara watched from the safety of the cave, her heart pounding. She had never seen such strength and control in any creature, much less a man who was part wolf, part alpha. When the intruders finally retreated, Kalen returned to the cave, his expression unreadable. Alara stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. You could have been hurt." Kalen shook his head. "It is my duty to protect my territory, and those under it, including you." Alara looked into his eyes and saw something unexpected, something human. Fear perhaps, but also care and even longing. She did not understand her own reaction, but she felt drawn closer, compelled by emotions she could not yet name. The night deepened, and Kaelin sat beside her, just close enough to be protective but careful not to crowd her. "Tell me," he said softly, "why do you risk so much for people who may never even know your name?" Ilara looked down at her hands. "Because they are innocent. Because they cannot protect themselves. And because someone must stand in the darkness when others cannot." Kaelin studied her, and for the first time in centuries he felt something he had thought lost. A connection. A fragile thread tying his fate to another, yet he also felt the weight of his own curse and duty. Loving a human was forbidden. Loving a healer, a human so brave and defiant, could unravel everything he had built for his pack. And still, he could not pull away. Hours passed, and the first hints of dawn painted the forest in pale light. Ilara, exhausted but safe, allowed herself to relax for the first time in days. Kaelin remained vigilant, yet his gaze kept drifting to her, and she noticed. The unspoken tension between them was palpable, filled with curiosity, admiration, and a quiet, forbidden longing neither dared voice. "Kaelin," Ilara whispered finally, "why do you not fear me?" He paused, considering her question. "I fear many things," he admitted, "but you are not a thing to fear. You are something else entirely, something I do not understand." Ilara's chest tightened at his words. Something unnameable stirred in her, a mixture of hope, fear, and something deeper. She realized that despite everything, she trusted him. Not just with her life, but with a part of her that she had never shared with anyone. Kaelin stood then, moving to the cave entrance to survey the forest. "The night is not over," he said. "There are still threats, but for now you are safe, and I will not allow anyone to harm you." Ilara nodded, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. For the first time she allowed herself a small smile, even as the shadows of the forest reminded her that danger was never far. She did not yet understand what this bond with the Alpha meant, or what it might cost. But she knew one thing. She would follow him into whatever darkness awaited. And Kaelin, watching her from the entrance, felt the unspoken truth as well. He was bound to her, whether by duty, fate, or something older, something deeper, and the first threads of a forbidden connection were forming, one that neither of them could ignore, no matter the cost. The morning mist hovered low over the Bloodfang forests, wrapping the trees in a soft silver glow. Kaelin moved through the undergrowth with a predatory grace, yet his mind was not on the hunt. His thoughts kept returning to Ilara. She had survived the first night in his territory, had faced the rival pack without running, and had healed the wounds he had ignored while battling the invaders. There was a quiet strength in her that unsettled him. Ilara followed at a careful distance, carrying her satchel of herbs. Her muscles ached from the previous night's events, but exhaustion did not dim the curiosity and cautious admiration she felt for Kaelin. The Alpha was unlike any creature she had ever encountered, commanding, powerful, and yet, in fleeting moments, surprisingly human. She wondered what it was about her that made him watchful in a way he had never watched anyone before. "You have healed my pack before," Kaelin said, breaking the silence. "You have knowledge I do not fully understand. How is it that humans can wield such skill and bravery?" Ilara adjusted her satchel, her voice soft. "We all have gifts. Mine is to heal, to protect life when I can. You fight to protect your pack. I fight to protect those who cannot fight for themselves." Kaelin nodded, studying her face. There was honesty in her words, but also a quiet defiance. He felt a strange pull toward her. Not just as Alpha, not just as protector, but something deeper, something forbidden. Loving a human was dangerous, a temptation that could ruin him. And yet, he could not ignore it. As they moved deeper into the forest, the trees thickened and the sunlight grew dim. The forest seemed alive around them, whispering in a language older than any human. Kaelin's senses were alert. He could feel every movement, every shift in the shadows. "Ilara," he said suddenly, "there is something I must tell you, something about my past, about my pack." Ilara turned toward him, curiosity mixing with concern. "What is it?" Kaelin stopped, the forest falling silent around them. "Our bloodline is bound by an ancient curse," he said. "A curse tied to love forbidden. Centuries ago, an Alpha fell in love with a human, and the consequences were catastrophic. Since then, the pack has carried this burden. The curse waits for the wrong choice, the wrong love to awaken. Ilara's eyes widened. A curse? Kalen nodded. It is not just superstition. I have seen it manifest before. Pain, betrayal, death. It feeds on the bonds that should not exist, and it grows stronger if we do not resist it. Ilara swallowed. She had heard of legends of curses that haunted rulers and their kingdoms, but this was different. This was real, and she was standing in the middle of it. Yet fear was tempered by something else, a desire to understand, to help, to be a part of whatever this alpha needed. Then, what happens if the curse awakens now? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Kalen's eyes darkened. If it awakens while you are here, I cannot promise safety for either of us. For a moment, the forest seemed to close in, the shadows stretching long and dark between the trees. Ilara felt a shiver, not entirely from fear, but from the weight of his words. And yet, despite the danger, she did not step back. I will face it, she said firmly. If there is a chance to stop it, I will help. I trust you. Kalen's gaze softened, and he felt a tension in his chest he could not name. Trust was dangerous in his world, yet here she was offering it freely. A human offering faith to an alpha king, something he had not experienced in decades. Their journey continued in silence, each lost in thought. The trees gradually opened into a valley shrouded in fog, where ruins of ancient stone lay half buried under moss and ivy. Kalen stopped at the edge of the clearing, his eyes scanning the stones. This place, he said, is where the previous alphas confronted their greatest trials. The curse has roots here, in the remnants of those who failed. Ilara stepped closer, her fingers brushing the smooth surface of a broken column. It feels heavy, she whispered, as if the stones themselves remember sorrow. Kalen's jaw tightened. They do. Every failure, every heart lost, every life claimed by the curse is etched into these walls. And now, it waits for the next mistake. The air shifted and the fog seemed to deepen around them. Ilara's heart beat faster. Then, what do we do? Kalen turned to her, his eyes intense. We face it together, but you must know, this is not just a test of strength. It is a test of heart, courage, and will. If either of us falters, the curse will strike. Ilara nodded, feeling a mix of fear and determination. She did not fully understand what lay ahead, but she trusted Kalen. And in that trust she found a strange courage, one that seemed to grow stronger with every heartbeat. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, the ruins began to shift subtly, shadows moved where none should have been, and a chill wind blew through the stones. Kalen's body tensed, senses alert. It is here, he murmured. The curse is awakening. Ilara's eyes widened. I can feel it too. It's like a pulse in the air, something dark and heavy. Kalen nodded, stepping closer to her. Stay near me, he said. Do not move apart. The curse can exploit fear, doubt, and separation. A low, haunting growl echoed through the valley, and the shadows began to coalesce into a shape. A massive wolf, larger than any living creature, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. The air itself seemed to warp around it, cold and suffocating. Kalen stepped in front of Ilara, his body a shield. This is the first manifestation, he said, his voice steady but tinged with warning. It will test us, try to break our bond before it can even form. Stand strong. The spectral wolf lunged, and Kalen moved with inhuman speed, meeting it with his own strength and skill. The force of the clash sent vibrations through the ground. Ilara stumbled back, her heart racing, but she refused to run. She had to stay, had to witness, had to help if she could. You are stronger than I imagined, Kalen muttered mid-fight, glancing at her briefly. Do not falter. Ilara clenched her fists, feeling a strange warmth pulse through her hands. She did not know why, but she could sense the wolf's energy, its dark force, and somehow she knew she could help. Slowly, carefully, she extended her hands toward the spectral creature, whispering words she did not fully understand. Words of calm, of life, of protection. The wolf hesitated, its form flickering under the power of her intent. Kalen seized the moment, striking with precision, forcing the shadow to recoil into the fog. Together, they pushed it back, and for the first time, Ilara realized that she and Kalen were more than just alpha and human. Together, they could confront forces older than either of them. When the wolf finally dissipated into mist, Kalen fell to one knee, breathing heavily. His eyes found Ilara, and in that moment there was no mask of alpha authority, only raw emotion, gratitude, and something deeper he did not name. You saved more than yourself, he said quietly. You helped save me, Ilara's chest heaved. I could feel it. The fear, the anger, and the pain, I think it is bound to you, but not just as a curse. Something else is tied to it. Kalen's gaze lingered on her, a mix of awe and something more dangerous, something he had fought to suppress. He wanted to pull her close, to protect her with everything he had, yet he knew the boundaries of their world. Forbidden love was exactly that, forbidden. The valley fell silent again, the fog lifting slowly as the evening light softened. They stood close, side by side, two unlikely allies bound by fate, by courage, and by the beginnings of a connection neither dared speak aloud. Kalen finally broke the silence. You have proven more than bravery tonight. You have shown heart that is rarer than any strength I know. Ilara's eyes met his. And you are not just a king, Kalen. You are something more, something I cannot yet name, but I feel it. He nodded, swallowing hard. Perhaps we are bound by more than duty, or survival. Perhaps the forest itself has chosen to test us, to see if we are worthy of what it holds. As darkness fell fully, the wind whispered through the ruins, carrying a promise and a warning. Kalen and Ilara would face the curse again. The trials had only begun, and the threads of fate were tightening around them. Yet for the first time, Kalen did not fear the future entirely, because he realized that with Ilara by his side, there might be a chance to survive, to overcome, and perhaps, to love. The night descended over the Bloodfang forest like a velvet shroud. Shadows clung to the trees, thick and restless, as if the forest itself sensed the approaching storm. Kalen's senses were alert, every sound amplified, the rustle of leaves, the distant howl of wolves, the whisper of the wind carrying secrets older than memory. He moved through the undergrowth with the precision of a predator, yet his heart was not entirely focused on the hunt. Ilara followed closely, her hand brushing against his as they moved. She felt the tension in the air, a weight she could almost touch. The curse had returned, stronger and more cunning than before, and with it came the rival packs, drawn by the presence of the human he protected. You must stay close, Kalen said, his voice low but commanding. Do not let fear take hold. The curse will try to exploit it. Ilara nodded, though her heart raced. She had faced the curse before, but now it felt personal, relentless, as if it sought not only to test their courage but to tear them apart. The forest opened into a vast clearing, the ruins of ancient stone glowing faintly in the moonlight. Kalen stopped, placing himself between Ilara and the shadows beyond. The spectral wolf appeared first, larger, more terrifying than ever. Its eyes burned with an unnatural light, and its form shifted like smoke, twisting and flickering as if the night itself had taken shape. Together, Kalen whispered, gripping her hand. His strength pulsed through her, steadying her, trembling. We face this together. Ilara swallowed, her fear tempered by the bond between them. Together, she echoed. The curse attacked, not with claws but with visions. Ilara saw Kalen struck down, the pack torn apart, herself abandoned and lost. The shadow's whispers clawed at her mind, telling her she was weak, that she could not survive, that love between them would bring only ruin. Kalen felt it too, the tug of the curse at his heart. Every vision of failure, every whisper of doubt threatened to break his focus. But when he looked at Ilara, standing beside him with courage shining in her eyes, he remembered what mattered. This bond, fragile, forbidden, yet unbreakable, was stronger than the fear trying to divide them. The spectral wolf lunged, its form striking like lightning. Kalen met it with all his strength, but he did not fight alone. Ilara, sensing the energy of the curse, stepped forward, raising her hands and speaking words she did not fully understand. They were not spells or incantations, but words of life, of courage, of connection. The shadow recoiled, and for the first time it faltered. Kalen pressed the advantage, striking with precision and force, driving the darkness back. But the curse was cunning. From the edges of the clearing, rival wolves emerged, eyes gleaming, teeth bared. They had come for her, for him, for the weakness they believed the human represented. Kalen growled, a sound that shook the forest. Ilara, now! She stepped beside him, feeling the pulse of his power, the rhythm of his heartbeat syncing with hers. Together they moved as one. Kalen struck at the wolves, his strength and speed unmatched. Ilara's courage and her bond with him gave her an unusual edge. She moved with a clarity and purpose she had never felt before. The rival wolves hesitated, confused by the unexpected unity. Kalen's voice echoed through the clearing. They cannot harm us, not if we remain united. The spectral wolf howled, a sound that cut through the night like a blade. The shadows around it began to twist, forming illusions of fear and despair, but Alara held Kalen's hand tightly. The bond between them pulsed, shining like a beacon. They were not just alpha and human. They were allies, connected by courage, trust, and a fledgling love that defied every law the forest had ever known. The illusions grew stronger, testing their resolve. Kalen was shown visions of centuries past, alphas who had failed, humans who had perished, love that had been torn apart. He felt the weight of those failures pressing against him, threatening to crush his will. But when he glanced at Alara, her eyes steady, her hand gripping his, he felt the weight lift, replaced by a fierce determination. Alara spoke then, her voice cutting through the whispers of the curse. "You are not alone, Kalen. We face this together. We are stronger than fear." Her words resonated through the clearing, carrying with them the strength of her spirit. The spectral wolf faltered, its form flickering, unstable. Kalen pressed forward and Alara followed, their unity driving the darkness back. The rival wolves, seeing the power between them, began to retreat. They had underestimated the human, underestimated the strength of the bond that had formed. The spectral wolf, the manifestation of the curse itself, shrieked and dissipated into mist, leaving only silence and the soft glow of the moon on the ancient stones. Kalen fell to one knee, exhausted but victorious. Alara stepped beside him, her chest heaving. "We did it," she whispered, awe in her voice. Kalen looked at her, and in his eyes, there was something more than relief. There was wonder, admiration, and the beginnings of something forbidden yet undeniable. "No," he said quietly. "We did it together. You were as much a part of this victory as I was. Without you, I would have failed." Alara felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had faced the curse, survived the danger, and discovered a courage she had never known. But more than that, she had discovered the depth of her feelings for Kalen, a bond that defied fear, law, and even the ancient curse. Kalen rose to his feet, brushing debris from his shoulders. His eyes never left hers. "The curse is not gone," he admitted. "It will always be a part of our lives, but now, we have proven that it does not control us. We control it together." Alara nodded. "Then we face whatever comes next. Together." The forest around them seemed to breathe, the shadows retreating, the trees standing taller, as if acknowledging their victory. The bond between Kalen and Alara had been tested in ways neither could have imagined, and they had survived. They were not just alpha and human, they were partners, equals, and something more profound, something forbidden yet real. Kalen stepped closer, his hand brushing against hers. "Alara," he said softly, "there are rules in my world. Laws I cannot break, yet I find that I do not wish to let them dictate my heart. You have awakened something in me that I thought was lost forever." Alara's eyes met his, and in that gaze she saw the truth she had felt all along. Strength, courage, and love intertwined. Stronger than fear, stronger than the curse, stronger than the forest itself. "Kalen," she said, her voice trembling slightly, I feel the same, and I will not let anything separate us." For a long moment they simply stood together, hand in hand, the weight of the night, the curse, and the rival packs all behind them. The forest was quiet, the moon casting silver light over their faces, illuminating the beginning of something forbidden yet undeniable. Kalen finally spoke, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Then we will face the future together. No matter the trials, no matter the shadows, I will protect you as Alpha and as something more." Alara smiled, a mix of relief, hope, and love shining in her eyes. "And I will stand with you. Always." The night stretched before them, filled with stars and the quiet rustle of the forest. They had survived the curse, the rival packs, and the shadows of fear. But more importantly, they had discovered a bond that could withstand even the oldest and darkest of powers. A bond of courage, trust, and love, forbidden though it might be. Kalen pulled her close. Careful yet intentional, she felt the strength of his body, the rhythm of his heartbeat, and the warmth of his presence. In that moment, all the danger, all the darkness faded into the background. What remained was trust, courage, and the undeniable pull of hearts that had found each other against all odds. "Alara," Kalen whispered, his lips close to her ear. Whatever comes next. We face it together. Nothing can break us. Nothing can separate us. You are mine, as I am yours. Ilara rested her head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. And I am yours, Kalen. Always. The forest, ancient and alive, seemed to acknowledge their union. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying a promise of protection and strength. The shadows lingered at the edges but dared not approach, for they had witnessed a bond that even the curse could not sever. For the first time, Kalen allowed himself a rare smile, not of alpha or king, but of a man who had found something worth protecting, something worth risking everything for. And Ilara, standing beside him, felt the same warmth, the same certainty, the same forbidden joy. The night passed quietly, with the first light of dawn painting the forest in soft gold. They remained side by side, knowing that challenges would come, that the curse might return, and that the world they lived in was dangerous and unforgiving. But for now, they had each other, and sometimes that was enough. The forest had changed since the last confrontation. Shadows seemed darker, heavier, and the air carried a strange chill, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Kalen moved silently through the undergrowth, his senses alert to every rustle, every movement. Ilara followed closely, her hand still trembling slightly, though her resolve had hardened. She had faced danger before, but tonight, the weight of the curse felt real, tangible, pressing against her chest like a living thing. We are not alone, Kalen whispered, his voice steady but his eyes scanning the dimming forest. The curse is waking. It is testing us. And it is not the only threat, Ilara's heart pounded. Not the only threat? She asked. Kalen shook his head. Rival packs will not wait while we face the curse. They see weakness in my protection of a human. They will strike and they will not hesitate. The words made Ilara's stomach twist. She had survived one attack, but the thought of more was terrifying. And yet she did not step back. She had chosen this path and she would see it through. Kalen led her to a secluded glade where the light of the moon filtered through the trees like silver rain. The ruins of ancient stones dotted the clearing, their surfaces etched with symbols older than memory. Kalen knelt beside one of the stones, tracing the markings with his fingers. This is where the first alpha faced the curse, he said. Every generation since has left a mark here. Some fell to it, some survived, but none without scars, both visible and hidden. Ilara studied the stone. It feels heavy, sad, angry. Kalen nodded. It carries all the pain of those who came before, and now it will test us. The curse seeks fear, doubt, and separation. We cannot let it touch our hearts or it will destroy us both. Ilara felt a shiver run down her spine. Then, we face it together. Kalen's eyes softened as he looked at her. Together, he agreed, though the word felt fragile, as though speaking it aloud might summon forces beyond their control. The first signs appeared as whispers in the wind, voices that seemed to echo from the stones themselves. They spoke of betrayal, of pain, of love lost and hope shattered. The forest darkened, shadows twisting and coiling like living things. Kalen's senses flared, instincts alert. Ilara, he said, his hand brushing lightly against hers. Stay close. Do not let the fear take hold. She nodded, gripping his hand tightly. The warmth of his skin grounded her, and for a moment she could feel the pulse of his strength flowing into her, steadying her heart. A shadow moved in the clearing, larger than any wolf she had ever seen. It shimmered like smoke, eyes glowing with an unnatural light. The curse had manifested. Kalen stepped in front of her, his body tense, every muscle coiled like a spring. It will test us, he said. Not with claws, but with our hearts. Do not falter. The shadow approached, and suddenly images flashed before Ilara's eyes. Visions of Kalen in pain, of the pack suffering, of herself lost and alone. She gasped, stumbling back, but Kalen's hand was there, steadying her. Focus, he urged. The curse wants to divide us. It feeds on doubt and fear. Ilara closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and forced herself to focus on Kalen, on his strength, his presence, the bond that had begun to form between them. She could feel it pulsing between them, fragile but real. The shadow recoiled slightly as though her courage had struck it. Kalen seized the opportunity, moving with swift precision to confront the curse. The force of his strike sent ripples through the air and the shadow hissed, retreating into the fog. But it was not gone. The air grew colder and a low, haunting growl echoed through the glade. Kalen's ears twitched, senses straining. "It is not finished," he said. "The curse will return stronger, more cunning." Ilara felt a strange energy in the air, pulling at her. She realized, with a shock, that her presence was connected to the Alpha's power. The curse had tried to divide them, but somehow she had strengthened him. "You are part of this," Kalen said, his eyes searching hers. "Your courage, your heart, it affects the curse. I do not understand how, but it does." Ilara's pulse quickened. "Then we can face it together. I can help." Kalen's lips curved into a faint smile, though the tension in his eyes remained. "Yes," he said. "Together." The next moments were a blur of shadows and whispers. The curse attacked again, this time with visions of despair. Kalen failing to protect his pack, Ilara lost in the wilderness, their bond shattered. Each image was sharper, more painful than the last. Ilara felt tears prick her eyes, but she did not let them fall. She focused on Kalen, on the connection that had begun to form, and on the strength they drew from one another. With each moment, the shadow weakened. Kalen's strikes became more precise, more controlled, guided not just by his strength but by the bond he shared with Ilara. She felt it too, a warmth, a pulse of energy, a reassurance that they could overcome this together. Finally, the shadow shrieked and dissipated into the night, leaving only silence and the soft glow of the moon. Kalen lowered himself to one knee, breathing heavily, sweat glistening on his brow. Ilara approached, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. You did it," she whispered, awe in her voice. Kalen looked at her, his eyes dark and intense. "No," he said. "We did it together. You were as much a part of this as I was. Without you, I would have failed." Ilara felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had faced the curse and survived, not just because of her own courage, but because of the bond she shared with Kalen. And in that moment, she realized the depth of her feelings for him. Feelings she had tried to suppress, knowing the dangers of forbidden love. Kalen rose to his feet, his gaze never leaving hers. "The curse is not gone," he said. "It will return, and it will test us again in ways we cannot yet imagine. But for now, we have survived." Ilara nodded, understanding the gravity of his words. This was only the beginning. The curse was ancient, patient, and cunning, but they had proven that together, they could withstand it. As they prepared to leave the glade, the wind carried a distant howl, a reminder that the rival packs had not forgotten, and that danger still lurked beyond the trees. Kalen's body tensed, his senses alert once more. "Ilara," he said softly, placing a hand over hers. "Whatever happens next, stay close to me. Do not let fear separate us. The curse will always seek to divide, but our bond, our trust, that is stronger." Ilara's eyes met his, and she felt a surge of determination. "I will not let it break us," she said. "I trust you, Kalen, completely." Kalen's chest tightened at her words. Trust was rare in his world, and here she was offering it freely. A human, yet more courageous and steadfast than many who had fought by his side. He wanted to pull her close, to protect her from every danger, every shadow, every curse. But he also knew the rules of their world. Love between Alpha and human was forbidden, and yet, the pull he felt toward her was undeniable, as old and fierce as the forest itself. The night grew quiet as they made their way back to the sanctuary, the stars reflected in the stream, and the forest seemed to breathe around them, alive with secrets and ancient power. Ilara walked beside Kalen, feeling the strength of his presence and the rhythm of his heart. She realized that she had never felt safer, yet never more vulnerable. The Alpha King had faced many threats in his life, rival packs, curses, political betrayal, but none had shaken him like Ilara had. Her courage, her heart, her humanity, it was a force he could not ignore, and she had begun to see past the Alpha's fearsome exterior, glimpsing the man beneath, strong, proud yet capable of compassion, loyalty, and even love. They reached the clearing where they had first rested together. Kalen stopped, turning to face her. The moonlight highlighted the sharp lines of his face, the intensity in his eyes, and the raw power that radiated from him. "Rest now," he said, his voice soft but commanding. "The night is not over, but for a few hours, we can find peace." Ilara nodded, settling near the stream. She could feel the bond between them, fragile but growing stronger with each shared glance, each silent acknowledgement. She realized that whatever challenges awaited, she would face them with him. Kalen remained at the edge of the clearing, vigilant, yet aware of her presence. He knew the curse was far from defeated. The rival packs were still near, and the forest held dangers beyond imagination. But for the first time in centuries, he felt a spark of hope. Not just for survival, but for something more, and in that moment, as the forest whispered around them and the moon cast its silver light, both Alpha and Human understood one truth. Their bond was stronger than fear, stronger than the curse, and perhaps even stronger than fate itself.